believe you could either make your declaration now or anytime that it appears on the agenda. Our item number 3 is adoption of minutes. May I have a motion to move the minutes of Monday, May the 16th? Moved by Mr. Legault and moved by Deputy Mayor Matheson. Any discussion about the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? I declare the motion carried. There's no additional business this evening that I'm aware of, so we shall move on to our public hearings, which is item number 5, and we'll start with item number 5.1. This is case number A-2022-010. Denise Hogan with the residential address of 70 Beach Road in the former town of Southampton. First, we will receive a report from the planning staff. Then the committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions, and I will ask them to reserve their comments on the application until we have heard from the public. Then we will hear from the members of the public. Members of the public are advised that the ability to appeal the decision on this application may be limited if you have not provided comments on the application before the decision is made. After we have heard from the public, the committee will discuss and consider a recommendation on this application. I will now ask Ms. Mugabe to present this application. Ms. Mugabe.
Yes, thank you, Chair O'Connor, and good evening, committee. It will just take a few seconds to load up the screen. So we have received a minor variance application. The applicant is James Hogan on behalf of Denise Catherine Hogan. The subject land is 70 Beach Road in Southampton. This site adjoins a road allowance on the east side, which runs north-south and is heavily treed in the vicinity of the subject land. This area is characterized by seasonal dwellings and it's a short walking distance from the lake. The town owns the tourist camp, which is directly opposite the subject land. There's presently a 2-story dwelling on the site. This is the front view of the property. This image just shows the exterior side yard. The dense vegetation to the east is the road allowance. This is the rear yard. There's a small shed located in the rear yard. The applicant is seeking to sever the west half of the property to create a new residential building lot. In terms of the site context, this surrounding land uses mostly cottages and the tourist camp, which I already mentioned. Servicing is by way of municipal water and sewer, and Beach Road is a year-round municipal road. The purpose of this application is to reduce the interior side yard setback on the retained parcel from 1.5 meters to 1 meter, and exterior side yard setback to the road allowance from 4.5 meters to 2.5 meters. Approval of this application will facilitate the consent application to sever the west half of the property to create a new lot. We've circulated the application to the departments and agencies. There are no objections. Town staff have submitted comments, mostly in relation to the severed parcel. They will be requiring 5% cash in lieu of parkland dedication for the severed land. They'll also be looking for confirmation of the extension of servicing laterals to the new lot prior to the stamping of the deed. There are no environmental features on this property. We did not receive any comments from members of the public. I'll now speak to the 4 tests of a minor variance. The first test, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan? Both the county and the local official plan permit the full range of residential uses in this area. The local official plan includes a special policy area number 2, which relates to a larger area It's a residential portion of Southampton, which is located between Lake Huron, the Saugeen River, Grosvenor Street, Island Street, Huron Street, and Bay Street. This affected area is characterized as a well-established low-density and low-rise residential neighborhood. So the special policy is really to ensure that a height compatible with the existing built form is maintained within this neighborhood. As such, the severed parcel will be required to not exceed the prevailing height in this area. The application does meet the intent and purpose of the official plan. In regards to the second test, the site is zoned residential first density R1-1. The special provision is really implementing the official plan policy and caps the maximum permitted height at 8 meters. As a result of the severance, the existing dwelling on the retained parcel will be located too close to the new lot line. A reduced interior side yard setback of 1 meter is proposed. It will still provide a reasonable separation of the existing dwelling from future development on the severed parcel. And keeping in mind too that the future dwelling on the severed parcel will also be required to provide adequate setback to the common lot line. The proposed setback will allow adequate access to the rear yard, and there will also be a reasonable amount of space for some greenery, which adds to the aesthetics of the property. Relief is also requested to reduce the setback to the road allowance from 4.5 meters to 2.5 meters. This larger setback is really to minimize the physical impact of buildings and structures along the street and to ensure adequate sight lines are maintained and to separate street activity from the residential use, and will also be for privacy and safety reasons. In this specific case, the retained parcel abutting the road allowance is already developed. As such, the severance will not create any new impact on the road allowance. This variance does maintain the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. In regards to the third test, is the variance desirable for the appropriate and orderly development and use of the lands and buildings? In my opinion, development on the severed land will contribute to the overall public interest by securing an additional dwelling within a settlement area. Settlement areas are intended for growth and development. They have adequate services and amenities. The proposal also creates an opportunity for home ownership. So overall, this proposal is desirable and does represent an appropriate development of the land. In regards to the last of the test, is the variance minor in nature. In assessing this test, we'll look at impact on surrounding property owners, impact on the environment, as well as impact on municipal functions. Permitting the variance will not create adverse impact on the character of this area. Development on the severed lot will be a single detached dwelling, which will be in keeping with developments along this side of the street. There's no new or additional impact to the road allowance. There's adequate municipal services for development on the severed lot. The Conservation Authority has confirmed there are no natural heritage features or flooding hazards present on this site. This proposal is minor. As a recap then, to summarize, this application is seeking to reduce the interior side yard setback on the retained parcel from 1.5 meters to 1 meter, and the exterior side yard setback to the road allowance from 4.5 meters to 2.5 meters. Approval will facilitate a consent application to create a new residential building lot. This application is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It upholds the objectives of the Saugeen Shores official plan and the county official plan and represents good land use planning. The application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. Planning staff are supportive of this application and recommend approval. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Mugabe. Thank you for the report. Are there any questions for the planner from the members of the committee? Deputy Mayor Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, Barbara. Can everybody see me and hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Barbara, could you pull up the picture of the lot from the front, please?
Yes, certainly. I'll just share my screen once again.
Thank you. I think it's slide 5. Yeah. So is the height of the building from where the lot is now, or will the height of the building be determined from the buildup as the house is, the main house is to the right there? So it's built up about 2-3 meters higher. So how do we calculate the height of the building?
Okay. So there is a formula for calculating height. I just don't happen to have.
Well, that's okay. It's
in front of
just
me.
a question, because if you look at the house on the left and the house on the right, if they're going to sever in between there, they're either going to have to build up to be at the same height as the house on the right, which in that case, we're going to have a drainage plan because the house on the left is going to be facing the water draining onto them. But my question is, how do we determine how high the lot is going to be? Is it from the ground level or from the built up height?
Mr. Posner, would you be able to come to my assistance, please?
Sure. Yeah, no, it's certainly a very specialized question. I don't mind helping. It's the measure of the height of the building. It's taken from the average finish grade. So there is an adjusted height based on how much fill they have to bring in. Member Matheson brings up a good point about the drainage plan. During the normal building process, they're required to submit a drainage plan. So their drainage plan at the time of the building permit has to show how they match with surrounding properties, and it may affect how the property is graded.
Especially when you've got two houses of 2 different elevations. Okay, if I have a question for you, Jay, does that come later, or are we now just asking Barbara?
Well, Mr. Chair, I think it'd be appropriate if there's other questions for Barbara, but I think for clarification, but there are members of the public wanting to speak for this
Okay,
file,
I'll
including
ask
the
you
owner.
questions after.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Deputy Member Matheson. We'll now hear, thank you, Ms. Mugabe. We'll now hear from the members of the public, and I understand the applicant is here. Ms. Hogan, do you wish to address the committee? I don't know if she's.
Yeah, sorry, it's James Hogan. The applicant is my mother. I'm acting as her agent.
Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I don't have anything in particular to add, other than just in relation to that last question. The properties to the, I guess, to the east of us are progressively higher in elevation too. There seems to be just for context, there seems to be a general slope down towards the lake. So the one that you can see there to the left is lower, and the ones on the other side are progressively higher as they go up towards Huron. It's just a comment and observation.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. I don't believe there's any members of the public that are here to discuss this application.
Yes, there is a, there's one more.
Oh, I'm sorry, Elizabeth Burrows. Ms. Burrows?
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate the chair and committee letting me field my question. Ms. Mugabe has confirmed our concern that the property is being severed in order to build. That lot, so that would be the west side of 70 Beach, does collect a lot of water in the springtime and heavy rains. And as we've just discussed, the house in existence at 70 Beach is raised, and we own 60 Beach, which is lower than 70 Beach, than the house. Raising the land and then building would change the drainage on our property. And I realize that this is being addressed, but I would like my question to be recorded, if not specifically answered. What guarantees do we have as adjacent landowners with an already existing cottage in the event that a new structure is built on the newly severed site, which changes the drainage on that land and threatens our structure? So I'd like to, I guess, hear what official policy is and what rights we have as an adjacent landowner. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burrows. Mr. Posner?
Yes, it's, I'm not sure the specific legislation, but there is a legal requirement that, or a legal prohibition against draining onto your neighbor's property. So at the time of the building permit, when the proponent builds a house or whoever builds the house, they have to submit a drainage plan that shows that water is not going to be directed or drained onto any neighboring property. And the check against that is to make sure of their competency is that our own staff review each grading plan to ensure that it's designed appropriately. And the further and final check is through the building inspection process. When the final grading is submitted, we sign off on whether they actually built what was designed.
So as you look at that property and the pictures that are face on, is that a ditch running between 70 Beach and 60 Beach? Or what is the common process for dealing with this kind of situation?
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with, what specific drainage features are on the property. Our staff that review it are in the engineering services. So I can't answer that specifically, but the comment is recorded and any design that comes in has to comply.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burrows. Do any committee meeting members have final questions before we close the public meeting and discuss the application? Seeing none, I now declare the public meeting to be closed. Are there any comments from the committee on this application? Deputy Mayor Matheson. You're on mute, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. I think this is a good use of the land as provided as long as they get the drainage plan. I'm very familiar with that area and water does flow that way. So I'll be looking forward to seeing the drainage plan. My question is to Jay. Jay, we need to do something to minimize the number of variances that are coming into this committee. How do we go about changing the bylaw so that there is a minimum setback front, rear, and back? Because everybody that comes in wants a variance. We had a setback, but everybody wants to change it. Is there any way we can change the bylaws to say, this is it? This is as far as you can be back. This is as far as you can be on the side. And that would take care of 90% of the work that we have to do here on the Committee of Adjustment and get rid of those applications.
It's a good question. If I may just to pontificate for a few minutes, our general practice is that we, on a fairly regular basis, review our application volume and with the support of the county do a general amendment then every 1 or 2 years. And so it's been a while since we've done one, but we do look at the volume of variances coming through and determine, okay, is this one, if we made adjustments, would it still meet the sort of small town feel for the community? What's kind of been the struggle is there's sort of two elements. The zoning bylaws are pretty cumbersome tools. They were developed mid of the last century, and they aren't necessarily as responsive to the needs of the community that we're represented now. Certainly the types of housing that are being built in 21st century Saugeen Shores are different than the types of housing that was being built in 1945, for example. So, to what extent can the zoning be updated? It's very cumbersome just to go through that process. But there's two things. One is our planning permit system, which might develop special design standards, which automatically combines things like the variance, zoning, and site plans into one sort of process, so that you look at the project as a whole and determine whether it fits with the community and it gets approved or it doesn't. The other component is that Southampton and Port Elgin, for that matter, have very unique, lane systems, unopened, open lanes, different widths. And so having a zoning bylaw, again, with that cumbersome nature, has this, setback that doesn't always make sense just because there's a lane beside it. So I don't know how some of those could be overcome. It just definitely becomes more work at some point. There's my long-winded answer.
Thank you for that, Jay. I do remember council changing the side yard setback down to 2.5 meters. And honestly, in my opinion, that does take away from the small town charm. I don't like looking in my neighbor's kitchen from 4 or 5 feet away. But every time we do get an application, it's because somebody wants to go less than what council decided 2 years ago. So I think we need to come up with some way to say, okay, this is the minimum. There's nothing else. And that, like I said, that would, I believe, take away 90% of the applications we had, because this is what it is. You can't go beyond that. And if you do, you have to redo your drawings to fit within that diagram. That's just my thoughts. I do think this is a good use. I will support it, but I do want to see something done to minimize the number of applications we have that are always asking for a variance on the levels that we have. Let's get something that's set, and that's the way it is. It's written in stone.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Matheson. Is there any other comments? Councillor Carr? No. Vice Deputy Mayor Mallett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I see Karina Smith come on. Karina, were you going to comment? I wasn't sure about.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. The only other thing I was going to add to what Jay had provided was that we are seeing a number of variance requests associated with consent applications, and it's strictly to recognize the existing building on what would be a new lot. So it's breaking the legal non-conforming, and therefore it requires a variance for that reduction. There is the opportunity to include provisions in the bylaw that in the case of a consent application that the setbacks of the existing dwelling that may be on the retained parcel, those are automatically recognized and therefore don't need to come before the committee for consideration. So that could be something that the county with the town could look at moving forward as well.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to add, I'll be supporting this application. My one question I had written down was a lot grading plan and drainage plan, because I look at the elevations. So I mean, I've seen them around town where there's retaining walls having to be built. I'm not suggesting this would definitely have to have a retaining wall. However, I think what Ms. Burrows is suggesting is that she wants to duly noted that there's concerns about water. And and I know our building department would be looking at that, and there's a lot grading plan for this site is going to be important, like they are in all sites in Saugeen Shores. So I just, I hope that some assurances are given to Ms. Burrows as a landowner beside that, the water is being addressed. And if it's a retaining wall, it's a retaining wall. But I'm sure the building department, as Jay has alluded to, our building department will be addressing. So I'll be supporting this application.
Thank you, Vice Deputy Mayor. Any other questions? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve this application subject to the conditions on the decision sheet, moved by Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt and seconded by Councillor Carr. Any discussion about the application or the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? I declare the motion carried. Thank you, everybody. Our next item is item number 5.2. This is application A-2022-011, Daniel and Karen Watchhorn of 10 Saugeen Beach Road in the, I believe in the former township of Saugeen. Ms. Mugabe. Oh, one story. I just wanted to bring something. I would jump ahead of it. First, we will receive a report from the planning staff. Then the committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions, and I will ask them to reserve their comments on the application until we have heard from the public. And we'll hear from any members of the public. Members of the public are advised that the ability to appeal the decision on this application may be limited if you have not provided comments on the application before the decision is made. After we have heard from the public, the committee will discuss and consider a recommendation on this application. Ms. Mugabe, would you please present the application?
It's actually Ms. Smith, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry?
Ms. Corina Smith is presenting that application.
My apologies. Please go ahead, Ms. Smith.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so I am presenting this evening on an application A-2022-11. This is at 10 Saugeen Beach Road. Oh, there we go. So the purpose of this application, there's 3 variances being sought. One is seeking relief for the maximum permitted height for an accessory structure. It is a proposed detached garage, and that would be increasing from 5 meters to 6.71 meters. Relief is also requested for the interior side yard from reducing it from 1.5 meters to 1.2 meters, and that would be on the south side of the property. And the third variance being requested is for relief on the interior side yard on the north side of the property, and that is reducing it from 3 meters to 2.13 meters. Approval of this application would facilitate the construction of a 2-car garage with a fitness, craft room, and office space on the second story above. So this is a site plan of the property. You can probably see it in better detail in your agenda package. But as noted, they are looking to build the garage on the south side of the existing dwelling in line with their existing driveway. This is just elevation from both the front and the side of the property to give some context of what's being proposed. And we did review the application in the context of the policies that would be in play, including the hazard land and primary urban communities policies of the county official plan, the shoreline residential, and the special policy area 4, as well as the environmental hazard policies of the local official plan. And this site is currently zoned residential first density special, or R1-2. The applicant did provide a justification letter with their proposal, which included a letter from their engineering consultant, as well as a project summary with comments from neighboring property owners as well. And that's also included in your agenda package. So this is a photo of the property. This is looking from the road towards the existing residence. They do have currently an existing shed at the back of the property, but the proposed garage would be sited in line with the driveway as it's currently shown. This is a closer view of the development site. And this is identifying, as I'll speak to a bit later and included in your package as in the letter from the applicant, is there's an existing drainage swale between their property and the neighboring property to the south. And they're looking to maintain that drainage swale so that there would be no impacts to drainage in the local area. And this is a property or a picture of the property looking from the rear towards the front of the site. It shows the applicant's house in the right-hand side of the photo and their neighbor's property to the south on the left-hand side of the photo. And this is relating to the side yard at the north side of the property. And there's no proposed change in this location, but they are seeking a variance for technical reasons to reduce the setback in this location. So with respect to our review of the application, we did look at the 4 tests for a minor variance. For the purpose of this presentation, I will focus on the zoning bylaw and whether it meets the intent of the bylaw. So as it relates to the side yard setback, they are looking to build the garage on the south side and reduce that setback from 1.5 meters to 1.2 meters. They are looking, as noted earlier, to maintain the drainage swale on the south side of the property. But instead of providing the 3-meter required buffer, which is needed for maintenance and potential replacement of the septic system at the back of the lot, they are looking to maintain a flat area between the garage and the house that is 3 meters in width for that purpose. The reason for doing that is to allow for that access to occur, but also to allow for the garage to be sited closer to the house and not further towards the rear of the site, where there is some existing mature vegetation that the applicants are looking to maintain. It would also allow them to construct the garage and not interfere with the drainage swale that is between them and their property, neighboring property to the south. So it does maintain the intent of the bylaw in terms of that reduced setback. There is still space for maintenance. There's space for that drainage to occur, and it does provide buffering between the new garage and their neighbor to the south. That neighbor did provide a letter of support, which is also included in your agenda package. As it relates to the reduced setback on the north side of the house, as noted in the bylaw, there is a requirement for a 3-meter separation on one side of the existing residence to maintain that access to the septic system at the rear. In this case, as noted, they are looking to maintain that between the existing house and the garage, but because of the wording in the bylaw, they do need to reduce the northern setback from 3 meters to 2.13. That still does also provide adequate space for maintenance and access and landscaping purposes, and it is an existing condition and there's no change proposed on that northern setback. As it relates to the height variance, the applicants were looking and did get confirmation from the chief building official at the town that they did need a variance for this reason. The design of the proposed garage is in keeping with their existing house to provide that kind of continual landscape or visual appearance from the roadway. It is going to be set back somewhat from the road compared to the existing dwelling, so as not to overwhelm anyone who may be looking at the property from the street. And as I said, the neighbors to the south who would be most impacted by the height variance have indicated their support for the proposal. So there are no privacy concerns, and it is in keeping with other residential development in the area, and it won't be a massing concern because it will be set back from the street compared to the house. So in terms of circulations, we received no objection from the town, and the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority also provided a letter and indicated that the application was acceptable to staff. And included in your package, the applicants did provide letters from 4 of their neighboring landowners, including the immediate property owner to the south, and they all were in support of the application. The county had received no other letters either in support or objecting to the application. So just to recap, the variances being sought are for height, as well as the northern interior side yard and the southern interior side yard. Staff have no concerns with the proposal and are recommending approval subject to the conditions on the decision sheet that was included with your agenda package. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
I think the chair has just texted me and his computer did a reboot. He'll be with us in just a moment, he says.
Wonder
Are you able to
I could probably ask.
step in for the next few minutes?
I think the co-chair is actually vice.
Oh, is it
vice-
Don? Okay, yeah.
That is Don.
Don, are you able to continue with the meeting just while Pat's getting back on?
I imagine so.
I just had a question, Mr. Chair.
So I guess first we have to ask, are there any questions for the planner at this point? Vice Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I'll be supporting this application later on in the meeting, but Karina, I was just wondering, by the way, it's good to see 4 letters of support from the residents, and it's nice to see residents working together. That north side setback, Karina, was that a violation back when the house was built 3, 4, 5 years ago, whenever it was built? Or just explain to me about the north side.
Yes, through you. My understanding is that when the house was first built, the requirement for the 3-meter setback was achieved on the south side where the existing driveway is. There's a substantial space between the residence and the property line, the southern property line. And so the 3-meter setback to allow for maintenance was provided on that south side. Because they're now switching what would be the larger of the 2 setbacks, the northern now becomes the larger required setback, but it doesn't quite meet the 3 meters requirement. So it's really a technical issue to resolve the wording in for the intent and purpose, which is to maintain access to the rear. The applicant are maintaining the space between the garage and the existing home.
That makes perfect good sense. Fairly straightforward application, Mr. Chair, in my view. But anyways, thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Deputy Mayor. Are there any other questions for the planner? Seeing none, do we have any members of the public who have any questions?
Yes, the homeowners are there if they want to add something.
Hello, Karen and Dan. Do you have any questions or anything you'd like to know or ask the council, the meeting?
Yeah, we'd just like to make a statement. First, you can hear me okay?
Yes, you're good.
Great. So I'm Dan Watchorn, and my wife Karen and I first want to thank the committee for giving us the time to speak today. Back in 2017, when we originally submitted our building permit, garage plans at this location were approved, but we removed them as would not be built within the 1-year time frame. The location, the grading, the general design, hasn't changed. It was important for us not to alter or impact the forested area of our property that is adjacent to the Saugeen Valley Conservation Lands. Prior to preparing our architectural drawings, we outlined the plans to the Saugeen Shores Building Department, and we were provided a detailed list of building parameters that we passed on to our architect and the grading engineer to work within. And then after a year of planning and submitting our application, we were then made aware of additional guidelines. We've certainly learned a lot during this process, and even with the additional conditions, we feel that the plan as presented is in accordance with the intent of both the official plan and the zoning bylaws, and that the structure will complement not only our existing property, but fit in nicely in the neighborhood. After speaking with the many neighbors, we've only received positive feedback with our plans. A few took a time to submit letters, and most importantly, the ones directly affected are supportive. We recognize and appreciate the importance that many levels of government play in maintaining organized and cohesive development. We also recognize the role that community members play to ensure balanced execution of these parameters. And so we hope that after your review, you will permit us to continue with our project as planned. So thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you for that, Dan and Karen. Are there any further public statements? Anybody on the public would like to speak on this? If not, then I declare the public part of this meeting closed. Are there any members of the committee who have anything they'd like to ask or say? Ms. Barwell.
I just had a general comment. I will be supporting this. I really appreciated all the effort that the homeowners put in surveying their neighbors, getting those letters, and also the effort to save the mature trees on the property as well. Overall, it was a good application, so I will be supporting it.
Good. Since there are no further, oh, sorry, Ms. Coons.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, and through you. I would like to also say that I'm supporting this application, and having reviewed the file, the application, and spent a lot of time near and around that property, I can see that what they're proposing will look very pleasing from the road, and they have taken a lot of steps to preserve all the natural features that they are backing onto. So I will support this as well. Thank you very much.
Good. One more call. Anybody on the committee have anything else to say? Okay, then I'd like to call the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Are you opposed, Mr. Legault, or are you in favor?
Sorry, we needed a motion first there, right?
Oh, my apologies. I'm kind of going off of memory here.
And I'll move to
motion to accept this, moved by Member Legault and seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor. Now all in favor?
perfect.
Any opposed? Good. I move that motion closed and accepted. Next on our list is application A-2022-022, Barbara Steep from 8 Fender Lane. And I believe we have Ms. Mugabe to do the presentation.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll just bring up the screen. This application has been submitted by Barbara Steep for her property 8 Fender Lane. It's in the former town of Saugeen. This property has an irregular lot configuration. It is well treed. An existing development consists of a cottage and a shed. Fender Lane branches off to provide a driveway access to this property and continues beyond to also provide access to the neighboring property, which is set back further back from the lane. That branch of the road dead ends at the neighbor's property. Existing developments in this area are mostly cottages. The lake is a short walking distance from the subject land. I've included a few images of the site. This image is showing a view of the property from the west side. And this is a north image of the site. This photo was taken from Fender Lane. The hedge screens the development from the traveled laneway. This image is the east elevation of the cottage. The site has vehicular access from this side of the property. This is the back of the cottage. The applicant is wishing to extend the cottage beyond its current south wall. And this involves the one-story bathroom being replaced with a larger section. A second story will be added to this room and to the proposed extension. The frame shed, which is currently in the area of the proposed addition, will be relocated further back on the lot. As well, the septic system, which is currently located just 1 meter from the south wall of the cottage, will also be relocated further back on the property. In terms of the site context, surrounding land uses, as I mentioned, are mostly cottages. Servicing is municipal water, and there's private sewage disposal system. Fender Lane is a road allowance in the right-of-way. The purpose of this application is to reduce the exterior side yard setback to the road from 4.5 meters to 0.65 meters, and the interior side yard at its narrowest point from 3 meters to 1.5 meters. Approval will facilitate additions to the rear of the existing cottage. There have been no objections from the departments and agencies. Town staff have no objection. They have noted that the encroachment needs to be removed. This is in reference to the former pump house that's located in the road allowance. The Conservation Authority has noted the natural heritage features on the site. And this includes fish habitat. There's also the potentially significant wildlife habitat and potentially the habitat of threatened and endangered species. However, as there is existing development of similar size and impact on the property, the Conservation Authority staff are of the opinion that impact to these habitats will be negligible. Applicant is, however, required to contact the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks regarding how to address the policy in regards to habitat of threatened and endangered species. We did not receive any comments from members of the public. I'll now speak to the 4 tests of a minor variance. The first of the tests, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan? The subject land is designated primary urban communities in the county official plan and is designated shoreline residential in the local official plan. And both plans permit residential uses. As already noted, there are some natural heritage features, and both official plans include policies for managing natural heritage. As I've already noted, the Conservation Authority is satisfied that there will be negligible impact to the natural heritage features. There was also a requirement for an archaeological assessment to be undertaken because the site is within 300 meters of a water body with potential for archaeological resources, being the lake. The archaeologist has concluded that the site is free of archaeological resources. The proposal maintains the intent and purpose of the official plans. From a zoning perspective, the zone is residential first density special R1-2. The special provision allows for development provided the lot is of sufficient size to accommodate a septic system and obtain a potable water supply. and also provided there's a 3-meter side yard setback provided on one side. I note this site is serviced with municipal water. It does have a sewage disposal, private sewage disposal system. The requirement for a 3-meter side yard setback is really to ensure access to the private sewage disposal system for maintenance and replacement purposes. I do note that on this site, the existing development does not have a 3-meter setback on either side yards. Notwithstanding, the relief is requested to reduce the interior side yard at its narrowest point from 3 meters to 1.5 meters, and that's because of the proposed addition. 1.5 meters is the standard requirement for 2-story dwellings. 3 meters is really for where development is on septic systems, such as in this instance. There are no concerns in terms of reducing this requirement, as the proposed septic system will be easily accessible from the road allowance, which provides vehicular access to this site. On the exterior side, the existing cottage is situated 0.62 meters to the lot line. The proposed addition will be 0.65 meters from that lot line, which is an insignificant improvement. The requirement for an exterior side yard is 4.5 meters. It is important to keep in mind that this proposal is for an addition at the back of the existing cottage. Therefore, there'll be no impact to sight lines, and there's also no impact to traffic volume along the road. The proposal does not worsen the existing situation. In regards to the third test, is the variance requested desirable for the appropriate and orderly development and use of the lands and buildings. This site is twice the lot size required for a detached dwelling. Over time, landowners can be expected to improve their properties. The expansion will result in a more functional dwelling, which is desirable. The variance represents an appropriate form of development for the use of the land. In terms of the last of the test, is the variance minor in nature? Well, permitting the variance will not result in adverse impact to the character of this area. The addition will not be visible from the street. There'll be no impact to neighboring properties. For the most part, those properties will be screened from the development by the trees. And there's also no impact to municipal services. The Conservation Authority is of the opinion that impact to natural heritage features will be negligible. This proposal meets all 4 tests of a minor variance. In summary then, as a recap, this application is seeking to reduce the interior side yard setback from 3 meters to 1.5 meters, and the exterior side yard setback from 4.5 meters to 0.65 meters. Approval will facilitate additions to the rear of the existing cottage. This proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It does uphold the objectives of the county official plan and also the local official plan. The proposal satisfies the 4 tests of a minor variance. Planning staff is recommending approval of this application, subject to the conditions on the decision sheet. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Ms. Mugabe. Are there any questions for the planner from the members of the committee? Seeing none. Now we will hear from the members of the public. I'm sorry that
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Vice Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I just, Barbara, the only question I really had was, and I think this is a good application, and again, I'll be supporting later on in the meeting, but is Ferndale Lane, and you know, that lot 266, I think Ferndale Lane, you know, from Saugeen Beach Road in is, and maybe the Steeps probably maybe know this better than I do, but that's a private lane, I think, correct? And then there's access off the other end, Ferndale Lane, which is a public road. But this application, just so I'm clear, has no impact on that private lane, correct? And maybe the Steeps know the ownership question, like that's not a municipal lane through there, I understand. It's privately owned. Can someone answer me that question?
There's probably some debate between some of the cottage owners, but access to our cottage comes in off the Ferndale right away.
Right.
And on the north side of that lane is our Barbara's brother. So, no one has any concerns about it. Other cottagers do use a laneway to access their cottage, so it's treated as fairly public because the only way people can get to their cottage just to the west of us is to use that lane. But in either case, we would not be impacting the access, and we don't actually need that lane ourselves because of the road allowance. We can come in from 5.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. Can I go ahead?
I'll just add to that the cottage has been in our family for 60 years. And it's only recently that there has the discussion of the laneway. And that was by somebody who was new and had a very vested interest in it being used, not being used. But it's been used, for 60 years, I can attest to, and probably for 100. Mm-hmm. So its designation as private will remain a discussion until, I guess, forever. Yeah. But it is used with regularity by people accessing the beach, whether or not they own cottages in that area.
Yeah, thanks, Barbara. And Mr. Chair, I just wanted to add, I at some point in time, the town, I'd really like to see that confirmed, but I believe it's owned by 266 Saugeen Beach Road on that entrance, but it really doesn't affect this application anyways, but because the Steeps, even if that road was ever closed down, and I don't think it will be, but they always have access from the Ferndale side from the east end. Whereas the property on the west, I think, owns that lane. But I maybe, Jay, at some point in time, it wouldn't be a bad idea for the town to take a look at the ownership of that lane. I'd be interested in knowing. I know lots of members of the public traverse that, like travel that road. But I know this really doesn't affect this application a lot, but I thought while we're here tonight, I just wanted to ask that question for clarification for later, that it'd be good to know at some point in time who exactly or who owns that lane. So
noted.
Thank you.
Because other applicants discussed the views of their neighbors and then had it in writing, and I did take that step. We have such a long history in the area that people know us very well. And so I did talk to everybody. And in fact, I was surprised to know that the information went around the corner right onto Saugeen Lane Road. And many of those people I know too. So I've had discussions with people and there's no objections from anybody. In fact, they're pleased because they know that the cottage is dear to us. It has a lot of history, and what we're proposing is just a minor improvement with a view to maintaining its character, but just making it more livable for these times because it was built in 1952.
Deputy Matheson, would you carry on with the chair of this committee for this case, please?
I guess I can. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are there any more questions for the planner or our applicants? Okay, seeing none, I declare that part of the business closed and now open up to any questions by members of the council. Seeing none, I'll ask one more last time. Okay, so then could I get a motion to for file A-2 2022-022 to accept this motion and go forward? Moved by Councillor Go, seconded by Ms. Barwell. All in favor? Any opposed? I declare that approved. Mr. Chair, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the applicants for attending tonight. And I'm glad that we were able to move forward on this. Our next item is item number 5.4. This is Centex sign variance with the address of 4845 Bruce Road 3 in the community of Burgoyne in the former township of Saugeen. I would imagine that it's Mr. Posner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so the application is for signage that's to support the converted use of the property to a gas station, the Burgoyne store, and I just circulated a site plan, which I realized when I was preparing for tonight that you didn't have. How do you know where these signs are? So the variance is for the illumination of signage related to this property. And the normal restrictions are that signs aren't permitted to be illuminated in lands adjacent to primarily residential properties, except in accordance with the bylaw. Gas bar that's proposed to be located and permitted in the zoning bylaw requires some kind of signage. And generally, given the times of the year and times of day that gas stations operate, having some illumination is appropriate. So I'm recommending approval subject to the conditions of a restricted hours of illumination of the sign, and that the County Highways Department doesn't object. But I've outlined in the report my opinion and the signs as they're shown on the drawings. And as I said earlier today, I circulated the site plan. And for the information, if you haven't had time to open that email, the ground sign is proposed at the south edge of the building, which generally aligns with the middle of the property. And the canopy for the gas pumps is on the south half of the property. Anyways, there's the information in the report.
Deputy Mayor Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, just a question for Jay. Jay, is this just an information report, or are you looking for a motion to accept this tonight?
I think I've got a good question. I made enough mistakes in this. Let me check. I'm recommending approval of the sign variance request.
We have a motion to approve the sign request. Councillor Carr. Do you have a question, sir? You're on mute.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, I guess, to Jay as well. Jay, I guess just a question with this one. I realize this project is already underway in Burgoyne. I'm just curious as to why it took so long to come. Like, I assume, is this something that would normally be controlled under site plan? Like, as far it's kind of long into the process, in my opinion, to be coming to ask for that variance now. Like, is that not something they should have sought before they began? Or can you just kind of give me a brief how this is going about this way, I guess?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly the timing for the construction it's sort of maybe difficult and awkward. I mean, this committee meets generally only once a month. So they had initially wanted to get the sign at the end of last month, but because that was when the main construction works were being installed, I think. So, but had to wait for this meeting. The idea is discussion with the owners, they could get going with the building on the basis that there's still approvals may be tied to the sign variance. Now that this means if you don't approve it, the signs that are becoming built or installed just can't be illuminated. That's it. So we felt that we could counsel and coach the applicant to continue construction because they had all the other approvals in place.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Chair, and just one more question, I guess, towards Jay with this one too, I guess. With something like this, because we are talking about lighting in a residential area, is this not something that we should have required more input from the residents? Like, as far as how long ago were they notified? I guess I'm just wanting a little bit more background on this because I have followed this project a little bit. I've heard little tidbits here and there, and that's why I'm curious.
Well, none of the processes that are required by the landowner require consultation through a public meeting. So the building permit for the building is just between the landowner and the building department. The sign variance is between the landowner and this committee. So we don't normally circulate neighbors on those types of applications. It's we rely on the bylaws to regulate them, and where they have process to change them, this is the avenue that is required.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Anybody else? Mr. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, Jay, is this the only thing they're asking for is illumination? Isn't there some height restrictions there that we should be dealing with? Or?
Jay, you're on mute.
So the variance is just for the illumination. The height of the sign that's outlined in the drawing is compliant. Gas stations get a small exception for the height. Because of the types of signs they produce, generally we allow a 4-meter height. That is at 4 meters height. The sign face area also complies given the lot, the zoning and the size of the property. And the signage on the canopy is shown for information, but it's compliant. Apart from the illumination, we think other elements of the sign bylaw are complied with.
Thank you, Mr. Legault. Anybody else? Oh, Ms. Kunz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. I drove past the property in Burgoyne and I share the concerns of Councillor Carr that it is a very sleepy little residential area, that they would be used to having darkness, I would think, in the evening. So to have this sign illuminated, I also am wondering whether the local residents are in favor of this. I saw no objections in the applicant's record, but I just want to express a concern about the illumination in an area that would not normally be illuminated. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Kunz. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve this sign application, illumination application? Moved by Deputy Mayor Matheson and seconded by Mr. Legault. It was moved by Deputy Mayor Matheson, seconded by Mr. Legault. Any discussion about this illumination of the sign? Seeing none, all in favor? I declare the motion carried. Thank you. Our next meeting date will be Monday, July the 18th, 2022, to be confirmed by Jay. And may I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Vice Deputy Mayor Myatt and seconded by Mr. Legault, all in favor. Thank you, everybody. That's carried. Enjoy your evening. Thank you for your participation.